Welcome to Heroic Herstories, Women in Medicine with the Katies. This podcast is to document the stories of women trailblazers in medicine in the state of Iowa. We will highlight seasoned women in medicine to create a brief oral history of their works and lives. We want to learn from their experiences, share their vast knowledge, and gain insight into the challenges they have faced. Our goal is to lift up those who have gone ahead of us and thank them for their incredible service and dedication to our wonderful field.
And today we get to welcome Dr. Linda Floden. Dr. Floden, thank you so much for being here. How would you like us to address you today?
By Linda, please.
Okay, Linda. All right.
Seasoned Linda.
Seasoned Linda.
Seasoned Linda.
Lots of salt, maybe paprika. I don't know. I'm a salt girl, but so Linda was born at Itaisuke Air Force Base in Japan and grew up in Wesley, Iowa. And my Google search told me that Wesley had a census of 391 people in 2020 and has a total area of 0.58 square miles. And it's located north centrally in Iowa, near the Minnesota border. Okay.
I always tell people between Algona and Britt. If you've heard of either of those towns.
That helps me.
Not Algona. I don't have Britt, but
I played 1A sports in Iowa in the 90s. I know both of those.
There you go.
Okay, well, that's impressive. Okay, way to go, Katie White. I was a little behind. Linda attended Creighton University for her undergraduate studies and graduated from the University of Iowa College of Medicine in 1987. Then completed her internal medicine residency in Des Moines, Iowa at the University of Iowa Des Moines program in 1990. At MercyOne in North Iowa, you have been a leader in many different realms. The assistant director of the dialysis center, caring for patients at the MercyOne North Iowa Diabetes Center, and you've won the MercyOne Golden Heart Award and the MercyOne Golden Stethoscope. She's also been a well-known educator. You have taught so many students. I saw that you were a community-based medical rotation facilitator for the University of Iowa and served as an internal medicine inpatient rotation for the MercyOne North Family Medicine Residency Program Director. And then you started an internal medicine residency program in 2016. Been a member of many committees for education and for the hospital system. And following retirement, the faculty, staff, and residents at MercyOne North Iowa honored you with the establishment of the Linda G. Floden Medicine Lecture Series. And we're just so excited to talk with you today. And we wanted to first off just thank you so much for spending time with us. So thank you, Linda.
It's a pleasure.
So we noticed that you hightailed it almost immediately from Japan to Iowa. So you're a huge fan of Iowa. And so everybody in Iowa loves to talk about the weather. That's what we talk about. We've already talked about it once since we met you today. We're wondering if you had to describe your personality in terms of a weather pattern, what's the forecast?
I think favorable growing season, I decide.
So just the right amount of everything.
Well, I've never been really an innovator or a creator. But if someone plants a seed about something and I see the value in it, I will be someone who will do whatever I can to help them make it happen. And I think I have a lot of loyalty in that regard. But I need somebody else to come up with the idea first, usually. And then I'm one of those people that I think can be really committed to the process.
I love that. I'll also say, obviously you're an innovator and a creator, considering you started a residency program. I realize you're saying maybe somebody else mentioned that, but that's pretty darn amazing.
Yeah. Our program was one that I really think that the subspecialists in internal medicine and our administration really were the ones who started the idea and really got it off the ground. And I really came into the process when I wanted to be a part of it in terms of doing the outpatient internal medicine primary care aspect of it, and they asked me to be program director at that point. So I can't take a lot of the credit the for the actual institution of the program, but it was a lot of work to get it going. And once I had the playbook as to how you had to do this in terms of uh, going through the ACGME process and all of those things, uh, I was one who was really excited to be able to do that.
You
Love
know,
it.
one thing that came up in a previous episode, we were talking with somebody else, and she had mentioned that she didn't get a job she wanted because she was told that she was more of a doer than a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another opportunity to have that discussion of, okay, well, so if a leader isn't a doer, what are they? Are they just, so it sounds like to me when you're saying, well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't my idea, but I did every single thing to make it happen. I mean, that counts for something, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I think that there are many, we all know people who have the greatest ideas,
Yeah.
but to actually get the people together
Mm-hmm.
to do it is a
Yeah.
whole nother aspect. And I had been in the community long enough and in practice long enough that I knew everyone, and people knew I wasn't going anywhere, and uh, so it all worked out, and it was something that everyone felt very strongly about making happen. A lot of pride in our community, a lot of pride in our system up here, and a real desire to recruit physicians to stay as well. So it was a high priority for everyone concerned.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, we wanted to start from the kind of the beginning, and we'd love to hear all of our women kind of tell us, what made you choose medicine? What made you take this path?
I, in terms of medicine and healthcare, th- that was something that I really wanted to do quite early on. And I was, you know, this sounds kind of strange, but I was really myopic as first. Who knows when I was initially myopic, but when I started to read in first and second and third grade, that's basically all I did. And I remember when I finally got in to see an eye doctor at the suggestion of my teachers, he told them, well, they said, all she does is read. And they're like, well, that's pretty much all she
That's all
can
she can
do.
say.
Oh
and,
gosh.
and so, I had a real love of reading and I was good at it. And I remember going to our Wesley Public Library, and I read everything. There were the Happy Hollisters and the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and there was something called Cherry Ames, which you guys have probably never heard of. But Cherry Ames, it was a whole series of books in which Cherry, a nurse, started out Cherry Ames nursing student, Cherry Ames chief nurse, Cherry Ames jungle nurse, Cherry Ames army nurse, Cherry Ames cruise nurse. And she always solved a mystery, and I really ate those up. And it really presented a wonderful picture of nursing. And then in school, I was good in the sciences. Everything seemed to come pretty easily to me. Um, and I was the oldest of five. Caring for people was just part of what I did. And there's then there's this Bible verse that I remember thinking about from a very young age on, which was too much is who much is given, much is required. And it's actually in kind of a scary context when you read that in terms of Judgment Day and all of those sorts of things. But I still take that very seriously. And I felt like I had been given so much in terms of my ability to learn and my love of reading and my love of science, the supportive family, that I really had an obligation to do something with that. And service in terms of medicine was what I felt was a great fit. I initially was going to do nursing. In fact, I was taking a nurse's aid course the summer between my senior year of high school and my first year of college, and working in a nursing home. And I decided, oh, I don't think I'm going to do nursing. It was a lot, not as glamorous as Cherry Ames, that was for sure.
Yeah.
And
Shocking.
Yeah.
I decided I'd rather be writing orders than giving the enemas and all of those sorts of things. And so switched to medicine just as I went off to college, and had the good fortune in being in college with being with what they called the Presidential Scholar Program at Creighton, which basically paid for my education along with some scholarships, and met other women who were interested in medicine, which was new for me. And that basically changed the trajectory of my career that first year of college.
Well, and the state of Iowa is better for it. Do you think, though, like I always tell, I never did a CNA course,
Mm-hmm.
but I always am telling students, like some of the best students and residents that I've ever worked with were CNAs prior to coming to med
Yeah.
school. And it feels like that would be that should be a more sort of mainstream thing that students are doing prior to coming, because you just seems like you learn a lot of really good skills.
I think CNA, those students who have been EMTs, those students, anything in which they've actually worked with patients
Yeah.
other than shadowing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's wonderful to shadow and to
Mm-hmm.
give you an idea of what is being done. But when you're actually caring for patients and working with physicians and working with nurses, I think you really learn a lot uh, in terms of where your priorities are, and whether or not your love for medicine is truly something that you can see doing the rest of your life.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, when you were in college,
Hmm.
women were not the predominant workforce as physicians. Was it, I don't know, how was it looked upon? How did people react when you changed from nursing to medicine physician?
It was my parents were very supportive. I remember them asking my high school guidance counselor if he thought I was smart enough. I do remember them asking that in front of me. Um,
Mm.
and I remember, but at that time, I didn't have, I don't think I had any female cousins on my mother's side of the family. And my parents were both from families of 9 children. I had like 40 first cousins on each side of the family. And there were not very many who were going to college even at that time. Most came from a farming background. I had relatives that my parents told me had placed bets on whether or not I was going to make it through med school. I had relatives tell my parents that it was maybe a waste of taxpayer dollars for me to go to Iowa to med school, because I was just going to get married and raise kids and stop practicing. I had, and that I was taking the place of other people who would be, that all happened. And I was told those things, and it just made me mad, actually, and persistent in my goals. Uh, Especially once I got to college and realized that I still had my doubts when I went to college. And at first at Creighton, I met a lot of kids that were from high schools where they came in with AP credit, and
Mm-hmm.
they were well on their way. And I really wondered, I didn't have anything like that in my high school, if I was going to be able to. But once I started succeeding, I got confident pretty quickly, and there was no way I was going to go back to Wesley and not have done it.
Right.
It was-
Well, I
You.
mean, what were the odds makers putting on you? Because you might have gone ahead and bet on yourself, maybe,
I
and
thought
made some
about it at
money.
the time, yeah.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't and once I got to medical school, my medical school class, I graduated in 87. I don't know if we were 35 to 40%. I'd have to look it up again, female. But by then, things had really changed. And I met lots of great women when I was in undergrad, too. One of my friends is a vet, another is a physicist. It was just that environment of winning a scholarship, being placed on an honors floor with other women like myself, and us doing well and having each other to be friends with. That made a huge difference in my life.
I love that. Women supporting women, right? Like,
Mhm.
and you don't even realize it,
You don't.
but it's like coming up together. That makes
Right.
a big difference.
Well,
That's
and just the difference between the sort of presumption that you can't do what you say you're going to do versus it sounds like on that floor everybody was like, no, you're going to. Like,
that's
just
right.
how are we going to do, then you can start thinking about the barriers, but it sounds like it was a big attitudinal shift from where you grew up. Like when you told people what your plans were, you got completely different answers, which is the time, and they're just, things are different.
My parents never doubted me. I
Mhm.
think, they did put those words of my relatives in my head, but I think that only made me, I think they knew what they were doing when they did that. Um, but I always had the support of my parents too.
That's great.
They kind of planted that seed, right? And
I think they
like
did.
that
Um,
motivation, that question. Yeah,
yep.
like, you think you can do it? She's gonna do it.
Yep.
I love that. Wonderful.
So we've talked about the town you came from and the sort of what you took from there into your medical training. Did that influence your choice about where to practice?
Oh, definitely. I really didn't have exposure to subspecialists. I really wanted to be close to family. I had a big family. I think that I was always going to do family medicine actually until like I was sending out interviews for residency. I was going to do family medicine. My OB-GYN experience was really interesting at Iowa. At that time, if you were Title 19, you were on campus for the last few weeks of your pregnancy, and we provided that your as medical students we did the checks on campus, and we delivered the babies. And oftentimes it was these very young women, very not in their hometown,
Hmm.
oftentimes didn't have a lot of support. And it wasn't a real joyful experience. OB-GYN wasn't for me. Plus, when I delivered babies and everything went well, I almost felt like I didn't need to be there. But when things went poorly, that was stressful. And the ability to think in the moment and to have a good outcome and all of that, that and ER medicine did not appeal to me at all. And so I quickly ruled out that I was going to do OB as part of family medicine. I thought about med peds for a while. And then my pediatric rotation as a med student was pediatric oncology. And not a good experience. and it's interesting. Most of my friends who went into peds did their pediatric rotations at Blank in Des Moines. It was a completely different experience, but it is amazing how much medical school influences your just that 1 month rotation in peds, or that 1 month you do of OB-GYN influences your choices. But I decided at that point to do general internal medicine. And then Dan Allen and Mark Pirtle were fairly recent graduates from Iowa, and they came to Iowa when I was a med student, and they were cool, man. They were, or I thought they were at the time. They were practicing general internal medicine in Des Moines, and they had so many friends there, all these Iowa graduates who were just doing wonderful things at the program there. And I thought, you know what? I want to practice with these guys. And so my intent in choosing the Des Moines program was really to stay in practice in Des Moines. But meanwhile, then I met my husband who wanted to live in a smaller town and said, keep it under 50,000. And to find a town less than 50,000 that had the hospital facilities that I was used to training in and doing the things that I wanted to do, the Mason City filled the bill, and there weren't a lot of other places like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I ended up doing general internal medicine in Mason City.
Was there ever, so I feel like, more recently, a lot of internal medicine residents feel a big pressure to subspecialize. Was that ever in the cards for you? Did you feel that pressure?
That was never in the cards for me. Medical school tuition. I remember my medical school tuition being $3,200. I actually looked it up before interview. I think it was $2,687 or something like that. So money was not. That was just tuition and fees. That didn't count room and board. So maybe that's where my $3,200 comes from. But the money pressures, the student loan debt. I had no student loan debt from undergrad going to medical school, and I had very little debt coming out. And so I didn't feel any money pressures at all. And the residents that I work with now definitely feel money pressures. I think gravitate toward some of the subspecialties because of that reason. And also, well, there's other things that are happening in primary care, internal medicine, that I think that drive people to subspecialty work. Plus, in residency, you do so much subspecialty work compared to primary care, and I think that's one of the reasons too, as you go through residency, that you oftentimes find your niche and what you're interested in doing at that point, and it changes even in residency. And in my residency, I always felt that primary care, general internal medicine was valued. And I knew lots of cool people who were doing it. In fact, a lot of my mentors actually in residency were subspecialists just because of my training, which was so highly inpatient. But I got to meet a lot of general internists in the Des Moines area who were doing exactly what I wanted to do. And so I really never felt that pressure.
I love that you mentioned just the fact that your residency program valued,
Yes.
in general internal medicine. And I feel like when groups aren't valued, like why would you go into that? And I don't know. I think there are lots of issues, and we'll probably be asking you more about, primary care and recruiting people to that. But yeah. Sorry,
Well, and I
Katie.
think, no, I think that, because I think the other thing that I really have gotten to the point where, like, I have a number of drums I beat with the residents, which they could probably name for you.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them for sure is like when people are like, I don't know, I could do this or this. And they'll tell me like two very disparate specialties that they're like thinking about. I'm like, those are really different. I mean, maybe you just like everything. Maybe you should be a generalist,
Mm-hmm.
like I like to try to pick out when I hear them talking like a generalist, and I'm like, that's good enough. I think, like, to be a general internist is okay. And not, if there's nothing that like really drives you towards specializing, I think being a generalist is a good option. But I think sometimes in the modern like medicine residency environment, like they need that validated as something that's, if they didn't train where you are.
How do they react to you when you say that? I'm curious.
Incredulous.
Yeah.
Not, like mostly like, look at, she's just talking again about going to primary care.
Yep. That's the reaction that I get.
Yeah.
As well. And it's something, as program director and being really interested in promoting general internal medicine and outpatient medicine, it's been a real struggle.
Yeah, there's a good uptake on hospital medicine, which is obviously amazing, Katie. But I just think it's like a very challenging thing, like you mentioned, that they don't get a ton of exposure to people or role models that do that.
Exactly.
And they don't get a ton of time because most of their experience as a resident is inpatient or in specialties. So it's something that is very hard to do part-time or like, not, without experience doing it. Like you have to just do it and be uncomfortable, and then it gets a lot better. But they don't get that time, which is hard.
Right.
Yeah. Katie, I think you summed it up so well, because like when I was graduating, I was like, I feel like I know hospital medicine. I'm
Right.
scared of outpatient medicine. And then interviewing for jobs, it was scary. And
I didn't have any concerns at all when I was done with my chief year. Like, I was like moonlighting during my chief year as a hospitalist, and I was like, this is like fine. Like I'm getting paid to do this, which seems crazy at the time. And it was definitely like there was really no learning curve compared to starting out in primary care, which was much more challenging.
And when I started practice, it was what we called the traditional model, which was basically you did hospital medicine and clinic. And that transition was easy for me from the standpoint of I felt most comfortable in the hospital. And so that part of my practice was actually a lot of fun. And the primary care outpatient part, I was terrified of. I had not done any women's health. And I was the first female physician in Mason City. And
So
the only
welcome.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, welcome to women's health.
Right. And the only female physician in internal medicine. Shortly after I came, we recruited a female anesthesiologist. And then we started having residents in family medicine, female, who stayed in the area. But I was the only female at the time. And I did not know. I did one pap smear in my entire residency. I did my primary care clinic was at the VA, of course.
Shock. Shock and awe.
And I think I did 7 pap smears my first day in the office. The male partners were dragging me out of rooms to say, this woman, we did a lot more pap smears back then. We don't do
I was going to say, every year.
That's right. Yeah. But they were dragging me out of, they were saying, so-and-so hasn't had a pap smear for a really long time. Do you mind just coming in and doing it? I was just like, whoa. And, looking up about vaginal pHs and litmus paper and, and even simple things like treating strep throat. It was not in my wheelhouse. And I did a lot of reading when I first started practice in outpatient medicine. That was by far the most challenging part of practice for me.
Yeah, people probably didn't want you to admit them to do their pap tests or anything like that. You're like, I'd feel better if you were in the hospital right now. No, that wasn't popular. Okay.
It wasn't. We did get to admit for the acuity of care in the hospital has changed a lot over the course of my career as well. We did get to admit people for like colon preps and stuff like that, but not for pap smears.
Oh yeah, my mom is always telling me about how when I had my kids, she was always like, I can't believe they don't let you stay in the hospital longer.
Yep.
She's like, I stayed in the hospital for a week. And I'm like, oh my God. Yep. That sounds nuts now.
Yep.
I just have to follow up. So did that continue in your practice where all of the male physicians are like, oh, got a pap smear for you? Like, or how did you deal with that? Because it's like, I'm not calling you in to do every hernia check, every whatever.
Well, you kind of get smart once you're on production,
Oh, smart. Good. Yeah.
My first 2 years, I was basically, I think my first year contract, my first contract, I believe, was for 2 years, $80,000 a year. And basically you were an indentured servant. And I still had my doubts about whether or not I belonged there. And so I was bound determined to prove that I could do anything, which maybe wasn't the best strategy because it led to me stopping doing inpatient medicine earlier than maybe I would have liked. I did the traditional hospitalist internist outpatient model for the first 9 years of my practice and then moved to straight outpatient. But a lot happened in that time too. We decided to start doing dialysis. We had just gotten a cardiovascular surgeon and a neurosurgeon at the time that I came here. And all of a sudden we were doing a lot more in the cardiac cath lab and a lot more complicated admissions in the ICU. And the volume of what we were doing inpatient was huge. And then to have all your rounds made by 9 a.m. and be in clinic when you were carrying a service of, typically 10 to 15 at that time. But I think my personal record was 21. I had one day where I had 21 admissions and consults. But to be doing that and to be doing event wean while you're in clinic and to run to the hospital over your noon hour to extubate somebody and then the nursing home patients to go see, it was just too much. And that was about the time that I started having kids. And meanwhile, one of our endocrinologists had retired. There was a need for people to step up and do especially outpatient follow-up of thyroid cancer. And I had a real interest in diabetes, and one of my partners wanted me to help him with insulin pumps. And I kind of developed plus every tired woman in our area had been sent to me as a patient with thyroid disease, with a TSH of 5 that wasn't reproducible. And so I had this but they did have diabetes, or they did have sleep apnea, or they did have this or that. And so I had just this big outpatient population, and a lot of endocrine that I kind of fell naturally into. And that's how I ended up with 1 year in between, helping start a VA clinic in town. I left the traditional model, did the VA for a year when I had 2 little ones at home, and then got an offer from Mercy to come back as part of a multi-specialty group and do outpatient medicine, and took them up on that. So lots of changes over that period of time. But I don't know how I started this. I started this basically saying that I did miss inpatient medicine. And what I missed most about it was the collegiality. Once you start doing outpatient medicine, for me anyway, solely, you're interacting with very few of your colleagues. And just to be able to run by somebody in the hallway of the hospital and say, I've got this patient. It was wonderful those first 9 to 10 years. I loved that. So,
Linda, I'm like laughing because I swear, like all the colleagues around me know that I'm like, oh, hey, I got this patient.
Yes.
Just stopped one downstairs and I was like, hey, did you hear about that guy with this? And he's like, yes, I heard. I'm like, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, when I started practice, we had the specialists, the subspecialists were in the call rotation with us. And so every morning we met every morning at 7:30 and we ran the list of admissions from the day before, did any handoffs that we had to do. And you had a gastroenterologist sitting in there with you, an oncologist. This was before we started our GI endoscopy group. This is before we started our cancer center. This is before we started our diabetes center. This is our dialysis center. Everybody was at the table and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't fun not having internal medicine residents, though. That was not fun. Or fellows. But that was not fun. But just the collegiality of being able to interact with your colleagues and with the other physicians was a lot of fun.
A couple of things that just listening to you talk about that time, a couple of things that we like to highlight when we're talking on this podcast is about, the twists and turns that your career can take, like I think, when you started out, when you left that Des Moines residency program and said, okay, I'm going to go into practice here, less than 50,000. Okay, check. And you did that. You probably had no idea, in the future, how that would evolve.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good lesson for our learners who are feeling so much pressure to make the right decision about what they decide to do, that you're going to have probably a lot of lives.
That's one of my selling points for general internal medicine and for internal medicine in general. Yep. I tell they are so sick of hearing that from me, the med students and the residents, but it's just like there are so many different things that you can do in internal medicine. And depending on the time that you are in your life, what else is going on, if you are someone who can roll with the punches and not feel like you're failing when you're leaving any one of those things. And if you don't tell me that maybe you're going to do hospital medicine now when you're young, and someday I might just do outpatient. I think that would be easy. Don't tell me that.
Anybody who says that clearly has not practiced.
That's right. But yes. I do hear that from young people. It is the opportunities, and I don't know that it's just, I think it's an amazing field. I think there's so much that you can do with it.
I love that you, like, in just talking here, you've told us that you were basically a gynecologist, and initially, then you did insulin pumps, and then you're like, yeah, and we started this. Like, you've sort of just leaned into whatever was needed, which is the great thing about having a generalist who's not going to be sort of precious about what kind of patients they want to see. It's like, well, if there's a need, let's do it. And being willing to learn is probably the biggest part that you've had to take on. Is you probably had to figure out what an insulin pump was, because those were probably like this big.
Yeah,
like a backpack.
When I think back on it, though, I had partners who they hadn't been able to recruit for a while as far as my age group. And so they were probably 10 to 15 years older than me. And a lot of them were friends from University of Iowa, from med school. And they just had much more ambition than I did, and they would say, yeah, we don't do dialysis here. We should do dialysis, let's make it happen. And this is a great place to live. That was the other thing. If we can get people to come here and visit, they're going to see, like we are, that this is a great place to live and practice medicine, and that you can be the head of your own dialysis department and so on and so forth. I remember one of my partners came up to me and said, Linda, you've been in practice for 6 years, I think it was. This is the last year that you can get boarded in geriatrics without doing a fellowship, based on just practice, right? There's going to be 3 of us that are going to do that. Let's take a cruise. It's a geriatrics review cruise.
CME cruise.
CME cruise.
Smart.
will go on. I mean, these are the idea guys. These are the vision guys, and I was like, sure, I'll do that. Let's go on this cruise and do a geriatrics review course. And we've all been seeing a very highly geriatric practice for a long time. These are just the people I worked with, and they were a lot of fun, and it was fun, and I think it really was.
I think we could tell that, right? Like, I
Yeah.
just see your
Yeah.
joy and every
Yeah.
different transition.
Mhm.
So how was it when you became a program director?
Mhm.
I guess, did that cut down a lot on your patient time? How was that transition from?
Well, let's see. In my mind, so much of what I was doing was non-patient contact hours already. I was there's just and it was stuff I didn't find fulfilling. It's talking to insurance companies, getting pre-authorizations on meds, figuring out how to order this CAT scan correctly that the radiologist used to just, when I ordered it, they knew it was put in correctly. And just so much of what I was doing, and the medical record. I always struggled with the medical record. No matter when I was dictating or when I was doing it myself electronically, I put way too much time and energy into the medical record. But there was so much that I was doing that it was non-patient contact that I didn't find joy in. And I thought that I would be replacing that with teaching and making something exciting happen. And generally speaking, yes, that was true. I had residents seeing patients with me, and now I had, they were able to take over my patient population, and now they were the ones doing the prior auths. But it just sounds cruel, but it
Those
was
are skills.
Yeah,
Skills
those are
they need.
skills.
Yeah.
And so it actually was a very easy transition. Probably the hardest thing for me was working with hospitalists and subspecialists when I hadn't done hospital medicine for so long, and not feeling that I knew what I was talking about always in terms of setting up rotations and the needs of the residents. And I suppose some of it was, feeling not worthy of it almost. It was to set up the hospital rotation, to work with our ICU docs, and I found that very intimidating. And that was, but they were all very gracious, and we worked it all out. But that was a little more of one of the bigger struggles for me, was getting back in that environment again after a time away. Mhm. Plus the scholarly activity and academic expectations, and getting everyone involved to realize how important that was to the program. Because I think there was a feeling that, we have so many patients, we have so much that they're going to learn and do here seeing patients. And then to make the academic portion of it, the scholarly activity, the requirements to help residents do what they needed to do if they wanted to get into a subspecialty, that was a challenging part too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like to carve out that time when there was so much patient care to do. Yeah.
Yep. And when I did not come from that background in terms of my practice, I was teaching, but it wasn't it had been a while since I had done the family medicine, internal medicine, inpatient month, and those sorts of things. Those were the challenges for me.
Sure. You were talking about sort of learners and policy around teaching your residency program. The state of Iowa is currently in the process of, or they're having conversations at the legislative level about how do we address the physician shortage, and they're talking about making changes to medical training. I assume in a right thinking world, somebody would have called somebody like you to ask you what you thought.
Yeah.
maybe they did. But what are your perspectives on those changes? They're talking about shortening medical school, changing those things. What are your perspectives on what we could be doing to grow the physician workforce here?
I have a fair amount of skepticism that the changes that they're talking about making will make a huge difference. They're talking about 80% of the 80% of the incoming medical school classes have to be Iowa somehow connected, correct? But isn't currently it's like 70% or something like
That's
that?
correct.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's going to make a huge difference. Increasing the number of residency slots, where they're talking about going up to 115 or new ones or something like that. I think that's great, actually. I'd like to see some of the fellowships increase their spots as well,
Yeah.
GI and those sorts of things. But somehow having teachers for those people, having to have them have good experiences when you're creating these, I think is going to be a challenge just in the way that people are being reimbursed right now. I mean, when the teachers have to worry about the size of their patient panel and how many patient contact hours they have and all of these sorts of things, I think there are going to be real challenges in doing that. And then just the legal climate in our state. To try and get more OB-GYNs to practice in the state of Iowa, I don't think what we're talking about changing is tackling the issues there.
Or maybe some of them, but not a lot of the
Some
key
of them,
ones.
but not a lot of them. No. I would love to see more visas made available to international physicians who want to practice in the state of Iowa. We have lost some of our international graduates from our residency program. One of my favorite, this is kind of a favorite frustration of mine, I guess I should say, is we had a resident who was just one of our chiefs, got into excellent rheumatology fellowship, would have liked to have come back here to practice. And one of the reasons that he didn't was because of the visa situation for a practicing physician. When you're only offering, I think it's 30 now for the state of Iowa a year. And I don't know, but when you're only offering a limited number and it's hard to get even some of this, to keep those sorts of people in our state who have a real interest in staying here and are excellent physicians. Something that I know very little about in my experiences working with mid-levels. That isn't something that I've done a lot in my practice. And anytime I was told the rules about how to incorporate a mid-level into what I was doing, I didn't do my own research. I trusted that what I was being told was correct. But I think that in rural areas, I think it's just a fact that that's going to happen, shortening the training time. I can't imagine being a PA, getting out after 2 years, and being able to practice independently. Granted, you have to have a supervising physician in some form your first couple of years, but you are able. I just know coming out of residency what it was like to start practice, and not to have colleagues around you close if you are out in a rural area. I don't know why anyone would even choose to do that. And the people that might choose to do that, I would be a little concerned about their motivations. Maybe you want to strike that. That isn't a good thing to say, but those things worry me a great deal. And just working with med students and residents, the thought of, some of them, even when they're graduating, are not sure what exactly if they made if they made the choice that was right for them. That's not uncommon. I can't remember how many people in residency changed their residency choice now. It's high in that first year or two, and that was something that was unheard of when I was a resident, but it's quite high right now. I just think to shorten their period of training is doing them a disservice as well. The depth of knowledge that we're required to have, the ability to know what you don't know. which as a second and third year resident, there's not a lot you don't know. But then when you get in practice, there sure is.
Everything.
That's
Yes.
right. And it's just, I think that something that would be helpful in the general internal medicine curriculum would be more instruction, and maybe you are doing this in terms of working with mid-levels and supervising mid-levels and that sort of a thing. I think that might be very helpful. Expanding visas for people who want to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Great suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not a, one answer thing, right? I mean,
No,
there's so many,
not at all.
such a complicated,
Not
very
at all.
complex problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the whole other issue of, there's been days that I've been in outpatient clinic with the residents, and I can see why they wouldn't have an interest in doing that. Being sick and in the hospital is a pretty great equalizer, and I don't think they get as much in terms of patients.
Mm-hmm.
In the patient care in the outpatient setting has really changed. I think that as an older physician, I had the respect when I came into practice because I was a doctor. I was a graduate from University of Iowa Medical School, and all of that. And I knew what I was talking about, and I was a good teacher, and I was able to really help my patients in that regard. But it's interesting to me the number of patients that come in now, and with a young resident in the clinic, it's a lot harder to earn that respect. They come in with the patient will come in with a preconceived notion of why they're there and what they want, and they'll have done their research. And they're suspicious oftentimes that we as physicians, with our scientific background, have been somehow hoodwinked, or that never used to be. I really didn't experience that in the early part of my practice. And to have to defend science in the clinic,
Wow.
I never had to do that.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, and it's I can see where those encounters leave residents sometimes less than enamored of doing primary care, just with all the information that patients are getting from other sources, and some of the suspicions that they have of us as a medical community.
Yeah.
So it's changed.
We've heard that multiple women that we've gotten to talk to have talked about that. That's a real struggle now
Yep.
with our, young trainees and early career physicians as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, Linda, we have
Okay.
some fun questions here.
Okay.
If you could go back and meet yourself on your first day of internship, what would you tell yourself?
Don't be afraid to call the senior resident.
Love that. July 1st is coming. I'm not
Yes.
sure when this will come out, but
Yes.
maybe the first thing I tell the new intern. Okay.
I feel like now that they have phones, like when I was a resident, we just had our pagers,
Yep.
True.
And so that was like a little bit more of a barrier between me and the
True.
senior. And I don't know that was good, but
I was literally
gotta be
told you don't
different.
call your senior resident.
Yeah.
I was literally told that. Yeah.
And I was told, call anytime you need to. But I'd be like, send a page. It'd be like,
where are they?
Radio silenced.
Right.
That's right.
And they were just trying to help me, I think. But.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
What's one thing in internal medicine that grosses you out?
Unidentifiable smells.
It's better if you know where it's coming from.
It's better if I know where it's coming from. I can deal with pretty much anything visually, but smells get me. And if I don't know where it's coming from, it really gets me. But there's the retained tampon. Okay.
Oh, got it.
That's right. Those sorts of things. Yes.
You use your detective skills that you learned from those books. You got it.
Yeah. Using all of your senses.
That's right.
Yes. I love it. One thing we love to ask women doctors about is menopause. Anything you'd like to share with our many listeners about menopause?
Do whatever it takes to maintain your sleep cycle. I really screwed up my sleep cycle in practice, and menopause didn't help. Having babies doesn't help. Nothing helps. Nothing helps you maintain your sleep cycle. And with my obsession with the medical record and making sure it was complete, I got into some really poor sleep habits. And menopause just makes that worse. And then the weight gain comes, and then all sorts of things escalate. So if you need estrogen to sleep, that has changed dramatically over the course of my career as well.
Yeah.
We put everyone on estrogen when I started, then we took everyone off, and now we're and now the gynecologists think we're crazy for not having more people on it. But it's whatever it takes to maintain your sleep cycle, it's crucial. And you'll be happier for it. I still haven't reset my sleep cycle. I'm 2 years into retirement, and I'm still struggling with it. So maintain your sleep cycle. Get estrogen if you need it.
Well, I was looking forward to this rapid fire question back when we were talking about you being the only woman practicing in Mesa City, because I was interested in that, because that you were at the height of the pre-Women's Health Initiative, that coming out, and then the post, the aftermath, and everybody, I'm sure, was like, what do you think about this? Like, what do we do? So that must have been a fascinating time.
It was. And we didn't always give women the answers they needed, I'm afraid, in retrospect, and led to them reaching out to others when they wouldn't have had to. And it's interesting. I'm really interested to see how how the next 10 years are going to go.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Any embarrassing situation you can share with us that you can laugh about now that wasn't funny at the time?
I once put a 50-year-old man into the stirrups to do a gynecologic exam. It was a busy day. That's my only excuse. I had been just doing women's physicals and gynecologic complaints all day. And I was doing a physical on a gentleman, and I examined his abdomen, and I walked down to the end of the bed, and I pulled out the stirrups, and I had him scooch down. And it took until that point, as I'm reaching into the door to get out the speculum, that I thought,
where am I going to put this?
And I looked at him, and I said, please forgive me. I hope you find this. I didn't see any way to get out of it without telling him the truth. And I said, I'm doing a physical. I'm kind of in the moment. And I said, and I'm so sorry that this happened. And it had happened to be someone that I had taken care of for a few years through some other things. And he looked at me and he goes, I just knew that you knew what you're doing. And I thought, oh, God bless you. It was, oh, man.
Oh, that's funny. So just a regular guy. There was no just
no,
it
was just a regular guy. It was just out of habit. It was just,
I love that.
Pulling down this, after examining the groin and after examining the abdomen and the groin, it was just reaching down to the end of that table and pulling out the stirrups. It was just like ingrained. It was muscle memory. That's what it was. It was muscle memory.
Oh,
he's lucky. He's lucky you figured it out, frankly.
That's right.
That could have gotten really interesting.
I remember briefly thinking, what could I pretend to be doing with this? No.
Just own up to it.
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite candy?
Peanut M&Ms.
This is a common answer.
Yeah.
I love
this. Is what?
That's a common answer.
That's a common answer. Peanut M&Ms. I think it would have been Heath bars at one time, but now I think I've got to get that protein if I'm going to eat candy.
It feels like multiple food groups.
It feels like multiple food groups. So peanut M&Ms has become it. Yes.
They should be in the health food aisle.
That's right.
I mean, yeah.
They're no worse than chocolate covered raisins.
Yeah.
And those are not really candy.
Yeah. Do you put them in the freezer ever? One of our women said she puts them in the freezer.
My husband's a dentist. He would frown on that very much. So I believe.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Probably the candy in general.
The candy in general, yes. Just don't wash it down with a Mountain Dew. He'll have a fit.
I love it.
Well, Linda, this has been just delightful. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think is important for us to ask you today? Anything we missed?
I think the one, I think in terms of regrets, the one thing I would like to say is to maintain your female friendships.
Okay.
It was
Tell us
difficult.
more.
Well,
Yeah.
it was difficult to do because my college roommates are all in vastly different parts of the country. I don't know if there were any other. My class in med school was very low in terms of general internal medicine that went into it, and there were no women in internal medicine that stayed in the state of Iowa in general internal medicine when I graduated.
Wow.
And I think there was one other person, a male, who a bunch did psych med, I remember, which was a new thing at that time. But anyway, so, and it's not like, and then in residency, people really do scatter. And because of the fact that I was the only female of my age group here in town, it was hard. And we're trying to, when you retire, you really value those friendships again. And we're trying to get back together now via Zoom and those sorts of things. But I do think it's really important for women who are in medicine to talk to each other frequently. And I was blessed to have younger family medicine female physicians in Mason City. But we're all so busy. We're all having kids. We've got so many demands on our time. But the validation that you get from talking to people and realizing that your concerns are not unusual, and the fraud complex, I think, that so many women have. I think that to maintain those friendships, do the best you can to get in touch with people. I would really advise that. I didn't do a good job of it. And so do it.
That's good
You're
advice.
inspiring us all.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Thank you so much. That's
Katie, I'm going to start
wonderful.
texting you questions more often.
There you go. Texting is actually a real boon because people can
Yeah.
answer you on their time.
Yes.
That was not the case when I was,
Yeah,
you
that's
didn't want
true.
to, if you were going to call them and they're in the middle of the pumping or,
Yes.
or
Yes. Yes.
all of those things, texting is great for that.
Yeah. Good point.
Yep.
Linda, we have a historical woman that we are going to talk about here. We like to review some historical women to educate the population about these
Okay.
amazing women.
Uh-oh.
Would you like to stay and talk with us about her?
Sure.
You're not going to get quizzed.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay,
worry.
good.
Just
Because
Katie,
have to listen.
no pimping, Katie. No pimping.
I have my list of questions, but we'll see.
Okay.
All right. So today we're going to talk about another graduate of the University of Iowa College of Medicine who made a difference by practicing in her community, Dr. Jenny McCowan. Dr. Jenny McCowan. And Katie Harris is the director,
faculty director,
the queen of the McCowan Learning Community at the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. So Dr. McCowan was born in 1845 in Ohio. We don't know how she got to Iowa. It's lost to history, but she lost the election for county superintendent of schools in Audubon County, Iowa, which was our gain because she ended up pivoting to medicine. And she was one of the first women to graduate from the University of Iowa, where she graduated with honors in 1876 from the medical school. She went on to be the assistant physician on staff at the State Hospital for the Insane in Mount Pleasant after graduation, which is a wild name for a hospital.
Quite the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. From there, she moved to Davenport, where she specialized in neurology and the diseases of women. She was an attending physician at the Cook Home for Aged Women, which I was like, how old do I have to be to move in there? That sounds awesome, actually.
I think we can go.
It sounds like kind of like Golden Girls, maybe.
Okay.
So I would be interested in enrolling. She served as president of the Scott County Medical Society in 1883. She was the chief of staff at the Women's Hospital in Davenport in 1892 and became president of the medical board of the Iowa State Nursery located in Davenport. She did a lot of things that were outside of medicine as well. She represented Iowa at the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, like the World's Fair in Chicago, at a Congress on Women's Progress, and participated in a wide array of events at that World's Fair. She presented a paper at the Congress on geology. She gave a talk about the child problem of today and participated on the child problem, and participated on the jury of awards for a lot of different exhibits, including on artificial limbs. She was a prolific author, with most of her papers seemingly being related to women's health, psychiatry, and pediatrics based on the titles, and then a lot of things about the intersections of those topics. So mental health concerns in women specifically was something that she wrote a lot about. Outside of medicine, she was a suffragist and established multiple charitable clubs for women. And one of the things I was reading that she wrote was an essay about the many ways women worked outside the home in the state of Iowa based on her examination of the census of 1880. So she talked about paid labor that women were doing, unpaid labor, and then volunteer work done by women, and advocated for better statistics to more accurately capture that work. And it made me really think about, physicians in general do a lot of work and a lot of unpaid work, and women physicians do a lot of unpaid work, including at work and at home. And I think it's interesting that it's been like 150 years where people have been hoping to get that captured a little bit better. And we're still working on it. But you described a bunch of situations in your life and your career where you were like, okay, I had these kids at home and I was trying to do this, and I'm going to go work at the VA and I come back. But I think it's Dr. McCowan is a good example that this has been the way it's been for a long time, and things are a lot better now than they were, but there's still a lot of challenges that we need to keep working on to try to make medicine a, healthy and productive place for women to work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Sounds
that's
pretty
Jenny
amazing.
McCowan. Katie, that's your girl.
I
Dr.
know.
McCowan.
I love like the broad scope of all of the hospitals.
Yes.
For the,
For the insane.
obviously. Yeah. The
Mhm.
insane, the older women, the baby. Well, we
Babies
had one,
Hospital.
we had Babies Hospital, Linda. And I just loved that name. But yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. What a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you for being a friend. Travel around the world and back again.
Well, I was thinking, like, hopefully I'll see both of you in the Cook Home for Aged Women. at some point.
Yeah.
Please, let's find it. Yeah.
I remember
Wonderful.
telling my kids that some days when I was just overwhelmed, it's like, I think I could use like a month in a convent. Just sort of thing. A retreat house.
Yes.
Just feed
Like
me and let me think.
the ones where you can't talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Vow of
Exactly.
silence. And for
That
all
sounds
of
really
those
nice.
around you. Yes. Yes.
Well, and Linda,
Aw.
I had the pleasure and honor of working with your daughter, Sarah,
Oh, yeah.
when she was a student, and now then she went to study or to do her residency at University of Wisconsin, which is where I trained, and she was a
Right.
chief. And I'm just like, I feel a little bit proud watching how great she is, and I'm sure you're just bursting
I
with
think I
pride.
met you on match day, actually.
Yeah.
You were there that day. Yeah. I
Yep.
got to go to match day, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she's wonderful.
yeah, she's pretty amazing.
We need to get her back to Iowa, though.
Yeah,
She's in the
I
wrong state.
know. And now she's expecting my second grandchild, so I definitely want her back. So,
Congrats.
I had 2 kids in
Wonderful.
Wisconsin, and I live here now, so there's a lot of hope.
maybe there's hope. Maybe
There's a lot of hope.
She loves
Boy,
the University
Katie.
of Wisconsin, and general internal medicine, the things that she tells me, I really feel it's valued there, and that excites me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, she's in a wonderful place, so it's going to be really hard to recruit her
Yep,
back.
I think it will be. Yep.
I'm up to the challenge.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
It's teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's
We
right.
can all work on this. Go from
That's right.
different angles. Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you, Linda, so much for joining us. We're just so happy to talk with you today.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to visit with you. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.